got a blizzard here, so I'm driving 40 miles an hour in New Hampshire home. Got maybe 20 minutes, so I wanted to just record something. Sitting here alone with my thoughts as usual, which I love. And I was thinking about the matriarchal shaming culture that we live in, that's a very emotional language culture. And I grew up playing role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, RPGs like World of Warcraft that had lore involved, and I really felt a kindred spirit awaken within myself when there's like warriors and wizards and clerics. And I really think that this stuff did exist at one point. And it was written in a manner as if it was the past. But now as we move forward, we can kind of see some of this stuff in the present and into the future. And, just how a couple things, like a phone in your pocket does seem like magic. People use their words to convince other words, like people use their words to cast like spells, and then other people build bombs and cast them on people. So they're casting fireballs down from the sky. So if you were to translate that, if you would try to take today's language of the world where people are using manipulative words and translate that from multiple ancient languages, I could definitely see how them saying there used to be these good and evil people, or these people that were, daylight or light or white or gray, like a neutral, or a black, like a dark, and they would say these words, and with their words these things would happen, like fireballs would shoot from the sky and kill people. I mean, that's what happens today. It's spellcasting. And there's charm spells, there's shame spells, which is like a cower spell. And the unique twisting of these words, I don't know, I'm going to just go on a couple of tangents here, because this is all done as I think, the way my brain links these things together. If I had to categorize myself, I think from an outside perspective, people would see me as kind of a warrior, but I'm pretty docile emotionally, internally. I don't know if philosophy and the love of wisdom would fall towards the cleric class. So a warrior cleric would be like a paladin. But I mean, the words that I'm speaking right now could manipulate the world around me, which would be some sort of wizardry. But when we think about the Salem witch trials, and they always talk about how these women were burned to the stake, for witchcraft and blah, blah, blah. The narrative is that it was for no reason. They just woke up one day and men were evil and they started burning women. And I mean, that may be true. I don't really think that violence is the answer. But do we know that these women weren't planting seeds of violence? So you can create mischief via words and manipulation and talk those words into existence. And if a female were to make sexual advantage towards a man with an inability to control his prefrontal cortex, who then lives in his lizard brain, it could very well seem like a spell cast or like a charm spell where they're controlling this individual to do violence. So is even if that person doesn't do anything, if they're whispering those words, it's a very fine line. Now, I'm saying everybody should take accountability. I don't really think that I'm not a words are violence or can create violence type thing. People are held in their own action. But I can see a case. But anyways, this was all sparked because I was thinking about the idea of these false words like homophobia or transphobia. And they use the shaming techniques like, oh, you have my feeling of an individual who feels like they are gay and has a sexual preference towards the same sex, we're supposed to 100% ignore all their actions and just respect and trust them. Don't look at them as individuals. They're a collective and they're all good. There's no bad. Meanwhile, if you have the feeling where certain individuals that happen to be homosexual are bad, that feeling's bad and you're a homophobic. You're afraid. You have an irrational fear. So I know people have probably made this argument before, but you would never if somebody had a fear of heights, they would say don't shame them. Or if somebody had a fear of anything, most people would say, well, they can't handle it. Don't shame them from these fears. And don't poke fun at them or whatever. You know what I mean? Like people that don't understand guns, you would never say they're I guess I would, but you say they were gun phobic. And people are like, well, there's that. And people back up, but there's certain words, xenophobic, homophobic. But what's really interesting is a lot of women, or the narrative of the collective of women, who seem to be more of a collective because they need the tribe, they use very collective terms. Whereas men seem to think more of an individual term. And I like to move between the individual and the aggregate, so I can still have female friends, and I have quite a few female friends, but also say women are X, talking about the aggregate in general. So I don't dismiss the fact that when women say men X, men whatever. But what's really interesting is women will tend to say, a lot of women, I could speak in that language too, I could say, a lot of women tend to say. So a lot of women tend to say they're scared of men, that men are going to rape them because men are dangerous rapists. Or I can't trust men, or men can't be trusted, or men are sexual deviants, or men are cheaters. And then men will say, well, get a good man and ask that man which men are intercepting. And they'll give you an idea because men are good at figuring out other men. So they can tell you who the weasels are. So talk to your fathers, talk to your brothers, talk to your male cousins. If you have good male friends that have been vetted by family members that have an invested interest in you, they can trust them as well. But then when it's a gay man and men are like, I don't feel comfortable around gay men, they're like, oh, what are you, homophobic? And it's like, well, here's the thing. You're saying that you want a space where you feel safe to not be sexualized by men. And then you create a female space where you say men should do X, Y, or Z. However, when straight men want to do straight men things together, they also don't want to feel like there's a snake in the grass that's sexual, bringing sexual energy to a non-sexual activity. And it's similar, I would guess, in the same feelings. For example, if I'm hanging out with my buddies and we are all drinking and we all want to get drunk together, right? If you're a woman, you want to get drunk, you say, oh, I want to go out and I should be able to get drunk without worrying about a man like putting the moose on me. As a man, sometimes you just want to drink with your boys by the fire and not have women around so you can be yourself and not have to worry about them sexualizing the situation or getting upset or you having to watch your mouth or whatever. But it's the same thing about wanting to let loose, have fun, and not want some dude trying to fucking grab your ass or make out with you, right? It's the same thing for straight men with homosexual men. So this is where this feeling comes from. I can tell you right now, if I'm doing jiu-jitsu, if I'm hanging with my boys, playing pool, drinking heavy, sitting by a fire, it has nothing to do. I'm 100% secure in my sexuality. I also don't want women around. I don't want people around that are bringing sex into a platonic situation. Okay? And it's similar to when women say, oh, we want to go dancing. Where are you going to go dancing? We want to go to a gay club. Why do you want to go to a gay club? Because we don't want to be bothered. But then men are like, we don't want gays around because we want to hang out with the boys, and you're homophobic. Anyways, back to the point of it. This is a shit test, okay? I don't have any friends that talk to me like this. I take them out of my life really quickly. A lot of times they apologize, but it's too late. When you use this type of language with me, it doesn't work, all right? I am the product of immigrants. A lot of my family are first world immigrants. A lot of my friends are Eastern European immigrants and Asian immigrants. With the exception of Chinese people, for the most part, in general, that like to stick to Chinatown and stuff, most of the people that I know have assimilated. Some Turkish people as well that I know that have been here a while that haven't learned the language and stuff, but I mean, I'm sure that happens with all the different things. But I'm not xenophobic when I talk about wanting to vet my neighbors. So it's like, if I think that there's and this is going to go back to the language, women in general, talking about men that are dangerous, and they don't want them around, right? And then they say why, and one of them has to be sexual, and then they shame a man when he has the same problem with a man and call him homophobic. And then if a man says, these men may be dangerous, I want to be careful before I have them around my women. If they're a outsider from another country, they have another word called xenophobic. And it's like, no, we need to vet individuals, and one way that you vet them is through cultural norms and understanding. And when people don't have similar cultures, and they're not interested in getting to know each other's cultures, or they come to take advantage of particular cultures, then that can be problematic. On top of that, then you get another word. So if it becomes then like interracial or like country-wise, they call you, in the country they call you a xenophobe. Outside of the country, when other people are coming in, it's oh, sorry, there's an accident there, so I was just checking to make sure everybody's okay. When other people go in, they're like, oh, they colonized this place. But when people move here and they try to take it back, they're like, but they're not colonizing. You don't own this. This is so-and-so's. So you got to be very careful. Like I said, when people talk this BS to me, it doesn't work, okay? I'm like the guy in the tower there in Lord of the Rings, where it's like, you have no power here, and he waves his finger. Just remember that they're trying to shame you. Now, I get it. If you are living in a society where the pressure from the women is so strong that you start lying about this stuff, you're going to very quickly get socially castrated within that society. So there's a couple things that you can do. One, you can keep standing up for yourself, which you'd be surprised how many people will start confiding in you when you stick up for yourself. You would think it's the other way around, that you're going to get shamed out of the circle. A lot of times when you're brave enough to speak up, you actually gain respect and not being disrespected, because many individuals, it's similar to like if you've ever gone to one of these comedians or hypnotists that kind of hypnotizes the crowd. There is people that are a little bit more susceptible to having this, whatever, but there's some people that just they let loose, but they know they're in the middle of the charm spell. There's certain people that hear these words and they kind of know they're in the middle, they kind of know it's bullshit, but they don't have enough courage or whatever it is, or care to stand up to it, so they just let it happen. Those are the type of people that are like this, because they'll feel when you stand up to it, they get a little bit of their sanity back. But the other thing you can do is just move. I mean, I was in Massachusetts for years dealing with all this BS. It didn't bother me that much. I didn't make a lot of friends, but the friends that I did make were very close friends, because they knew that I was always going to be truthful to them and speak the truth to them. And I wasn't being a two-face where I believed one thing and was acting in a different way. And then the other individuals that I knew couldn't handle it, but I had a particular type of relationship. For instance, I happened to be vegan. When I went to vegan events, I would just talk veganism and talk families and just leave anything else out of it that I thought might upset people, because to me it's not the place to do that. We have a common ground, so I'd rather talk about what we have in common than what we have different. But now that I'm up in New Hampshire, I mean, once you get away from the border of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, you can really speak your mind up here. And most people, they hear this stuff, but they're not dug into it like it's their personality. So I guess all I want to say is, be careful of these buzzwords that are trying to be used like charm and shame spells. They're not an argument. If you were raised in an abusive situation, which many of these people were, for example, if you were raised by a single mother who just kind of like her and her sisters and her friends and her other divorced friends, because birds of a feather flock together, it's not like these divorced women are hanging out with people married, for 40 years or whatever. Most of the time, they're using shame and manipulation techniques. And it's a good evolutionary strategy, so I don't want people to think that I'm saying this necessarily in a negative way. I just don't deal with it. I don't want a charm spell on me. But if you're weaker and meeker, because men do this too, especially weaker and meeker men, and there's some, I won't get too far into this. I don't know if I'm going to post this on Rumble or not, so I don't know if I can even say this. But there's matriarchal, two big matriarchal societies that I can think of, where it's mostly, one of them is a society where it's mostly single mothers that raise matriarchal men who are very simp-oriented towards women. And the other one is a long-term monogamous type tribe, and that tribe is still matriarchal run, and the lineage is tracked through the matriarch and not through the patriarch of the family. Actually, I'll get into one of them, which is the black community. So, with the exception of quite a few black men nowadays that are trying to stand up for themselves, and RIP to the great Kevin Samuels was trying to correct some of this stuff. But these rappers, when I grew up with these rappers making this money, as a child, you listen to it and you think that, like, there's the pimps, but they're not respecting women, so let's ignore them. But then you have the other half of it is, there's a lot of simps in the rap community. They're paying for sex, they're giving money, they're flashing their money, they're buying these women clothes and diamonds and food and all this stuff and all this money. That's not a masculine man that can keep a woman. He's paying for these women like they're prostitutes. And they're doing this because a lot of them are raised by women, and women are teaching them this. But then the marriages aren't doing very well because neither of them can keep this up, and they're not attracted. They disrespect one another. A woman is not going to feel loved when she's bought, and a man is not going to feel respected when he has to buy the woman. So this is not exclusive to the black community, but it's a huge problem in the black community, and it's moving into the white community. I don't think it has to do with. I don't know what it has to do with it. I don't know if it's ingrained. I don't know, because when you look at a Spanish-speaking community, they kind of haven't figured out they have their own problems, but you still see the man and the woman, they get together and they have a similar situation, but they keep that tradition alive. And it doesn't matter if they're poor or whatever, maybe because they're so family oriented. I don't really know. I don't know what's going on. So I don't know if it's evolutionary. I don't know if it's cultural. I don't know if it's bitterness. I don't know exactly what the issue is. But that's not the point. There's also a ton of propaganda in the black community, and there's also a ton of outward aggression from the government pushing into these societies, meaning they've created an economic prison / plantation via incentives, and they literally pay the women to keep the men out of the household. So it's purely rational. From a purely rational standpoint, it makes sense to not have the man there. If you get the man out of the house, you're getting paid for each child from the taxes of the community. And if you look at the world from a communal standpoint, then there's no guilt. And then individuals to look from the world, it's an individual standpoint, think of that welfare system as if it's derogatory. Whereas people within the black community that have more of a tribal mindset, I don't think they see it as a negative as much as a community thing. Like, the community is paying for the children. My children are part of the community. I'm part of the community, and I have to raise them. And again, I'm not making judgments here. I'm staying really neutral, and it's a good evolutionary strategy from that point of view. We have these multiple cultures living together, and for the most part, for the longest time, living in a cold weather climate, most Caucasians then move here, had an independent individual mindset based on, like, you have a family and you're individualist, and then you work with the community voluntarily. Whereas more tribal setups, think of things like a community where we're pooling everything together. So these two things will butt heads when one person's thinking we're pooling everything together and we're taking the money to pay for the kids, and the other one's saying, no, we're all individuals and we'll give through charity or whatever. And then again, going right back to it, both of those communities get pitted together using these words cast by spells, and it seems like the politicians, the orators of these words, and the media are crafting these buzzwords, and it's very interesting to see. You won't hear a word like in your entire life, and then the next day, on multiple Twitter feeds, multiple YouTube channels, multiple podcasts, multiple media sources, they're all using the same language and the same phrase, as if this spell was created, tested in a lab, cast, created the reaction it needs, and then taught to the other wizards within the school. So I don't know, I'll probably never post this. I like to just think about this stuff. This is no hate towards anybody. If you felt offended by any of this stuff, I mean, you might want to think about what you're offended by, and then dig into that, because it's probably not offense you're feeling, but cognitive dissonance. You're trying to take two separate things, usually reality and a piece of propaganda that you've been taught, and you're trying to hold them in your head at the same time, and it's creating a visceral reaction because you're holding a false narrative and a true narrative, and they're butting heads, and you're getting emotional reaction. It's an evolutionary thing. The clinical term is cognitive dissonance, but we all need to have them. And the reason people get so frustrated in my relationships and friends and people around me is I'm a very neutral person, and I don't experience an emotional reaction to information that's coming in. Most of the time, the information that comes in causes me issues because I waste a lot of time re-looking over data from new sources that aren't great. Meaning, I'll spend a lot of time working on a premise, and I'll work a principle from first principles all the way through. So I'm trying to weed out all the propaganda and really sand all the edges of stuff that I've been mistaught over the years off. And then somebody will say something new to me or have an argument towards me, and I will actually stop to think about it, and I'm arguing in good faith or listening in good faith. And then I realize after I go through everything, oh, this person's casting like a black spell on me, basically, like an evil spell, or, is there a waste time spell? And they're not arguing in good faith, meaning like I'm trying to actually learn, and I'm talking to them as if we're having a discussion where we're both trying to learn. And then what I'm realizing after the fact is, they're trying to win. So they don't care about the truth or the facts or whatever. They're trying to win, and I'm trying to figure out the truth. And again, even that is a good evolutionary strategy. So if you can just, walk around being Loki the trickster all day, while everybody else is all worried about trying to figure out other stuff, you're already on to the next, and you don't care about the truth. You just care about, survival, and you can slow down a lot of individuals from reaching their goals through casting these little trickery spells. And I guess the greatest example for me, which is actually a little bit fun, is you're on Twitter, and I like trying to create like the perfect troll, which is like a sentence that is like what the heck's that guy's name? A Warshak or whatever. I forget the guy's name, the guy at the Inkblot test, where it's a statement that is neutral, kind of, but it also takes both sides, like both the polarized sides, but then it's also ambiguous to a fact where no one can tell if you're being ironic or truthful or whose side that you're on. But when it's read, the person reading its reaction is based on their own bias. And to me, that's the perfect troll, if that makes sense. But what's funny is you'll be on Twitter and you're having a conversation, and I hadn't been on Twitter until recently when Elon Musk bought it. And you start realizing the reason trolling works so well is because there is some people in the world that are so stupid that you can never tell if you're talking to a complete imbecile or you're talking to a troll. And then sometimes you see two trolls arguing and you jump in to troll the trolls, and then it gets so deep you can't figure out, like, am I trolling them or are they trolling me at this point? Like, it's kind of fun, in the fact that, for me at least, trying to get it better at recognizing stupidity faster, because everybody seems kind of equal intelligence that I talk to, and they're very not in that situation. I'm very good, very English good me. Anyways, I'm done. This is like 30 minutes, so maybe there's some value in there for you, maybe not. I like to just clear my mind and my palate. My car's filled with a bunch of wholesale products right now. I just drove home in the blizzard. I got to carry them up 3 flights and list them online for sale. I should just start a podcast and a video thing so I can drive around and talk to the people that listen to this. I'd probably create more value in the world, but honestly, couple things just to break it down and be honest at the end here. I want to help people. I want to do the philosophy show. The fear that I have, I don't know if you would call it a fear, but I don't want to be popular and famous. So I would like to be able to give the information out, show my face, have it help a bunch of people, and then live my life normally. And I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe it could. I don't know. But anyways, at the end of this, in case I ever put this out, I'd like if everybody just listening we could just take a deep breath for a second. And actually turn my engine off my car. I'm going to close my eyes for a second and just meditate. Take a deep breath in my nose and out my nose and just recognize that however this video may have made you feel, or however you're feeling on a day-to-day basis with everything that's going on, the reality of the world is what's around us right now. And the fear that they're trying to plant is online. It's, metaverse. It's not even beta anymore. It's like third level, but I'll make another video on that. But reality is what's all around us. And if you're in a violent place right now, if you can move, try to move. But for the most part, I think most of us get along. In my day-to-day life, most people that I run into, I get along with. I hope that most people you're running into on a day-to-day basis, you get along with. If you're not, you might want to take some self-evaluation and look back and say, what am I doing that I'm so argumentative and I'm maybe off course? Because I see the world as very full of love. If you've listened this far, I wouldn't say there's lots of different words for love, but I will say if you've listened this far, I think the one is storage. I don't know. It's the Greek one for like the love of like the culture, the humanity, philanthropy, philo, the love of mankind, humankind. So I hope that everybody today has just the love of humankind, and I'll end it with the fact that for the longest time, I was looking for my philanthropy. I was looking for my love for mankind, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I looked and looked and looked, and then I just stopped one day and said, oh, you're not a determinist. You believe in free will. So instead of looking to find philanthropy in the love of mankind, because you're not finding it anywhere, you're finding negative everywhere, I just said, I believe in free will. I'm going to choose to love humans. I'm going to choose philanthropy. And it's really changed the way I look at things. So just remember, you have free will. You can choose what you want in your life. And hope you got some value from this video. Have a great night, or day, or morning, or week.